Introduction to the Chakra System. In this lecture, we are diving into the subtle body anatomy, the anatomy of your subtle energetic body. We will have a look at one of the most essential parts of subtle body anatomy being the chakra system. We'll have a look at what it means and how it relates to your physical, mental, and emotional body. Before we dive into the actual material, just a quick look at the two exercises you had to do and a little bit of an explanation why it is good to have done these two exercises before going through the material. So you were asked to do a chakra test. This chakra test will look something like what you see here on the slide. It will most likely look completely different, but you will have the 7 main chakras represented, and they will show up as either underactive, open, or overactive. What we strive for is to have them all open. And what you'll typically see that you will have a couple or maybe more that stand out. And it is the ones that stand out that we have to be aware of. So that's typically where our work is. So especially the ones that are underactive, but also the ones that are overactive. And you will also see them represented by a percentage. This is in relation to this test, meaning that if you were to ask someone else to do the test, it might show up with completely different percentages and saying under and overactive and open for different, in a different way. How to understand this is that this is in relation to your frequency. So according to this philosophy, we are all on a different frequency. Some people have a lower frequency, some people have a high frequency. So this is as if it's a picture of you right now, your emotional and mental state, how you show up in the world right now. And to give you a picture of, okay, this is where my work is. So how will this help you as you go through the material? We will go through each of these chakras individually, so you will get to see what are the characteristics, and you will hopefully see, this might be why mine is underactive, or this might be why mine is overactive. So it will give you a better idea of how to work with this chakra system. So, as I mentioned, this is a picture of how you are right now. And if you were to take this test, let's say 6 months from now, a year from now, and even sometimes a few weeks from now, it will show up differently. Because these things, we're working on them. Sometimes it can also show up exactly the same. And typically you can also see that maybe a few of the chakras always behave in the same way. We will dive much deeper into this, but simply see this test result as a help for you to understand yourself better, to understand, okay, this chakra for me is underactive. When we then dive into that chakra, try to see if there's something that resonates with you, to find the reason why it might be underactive with you. The second exercise you were asked to do was to calculate your birth path chakra and your life path chakras. So how does this work? According to this philosophy, this life has 3 phases. The first phase being from the age of 0 to 27, being our becoming phase. That is the age where we are learning, we are evolving. This is the part where we're still studying, we're getting our first jobs. We're sort of starting out in this life. We're becoming us. It doesn't mean that we all have to have it figured out by the age of 28, but that is like the first part of our life where we're still sort of figuring it all out and becoming who we are supposed to be. Then the next phase is it happens between the age of 27 and 28. We move into the productive part of our life. Productive meaning, of course, this is the age where a lot of people start a family. This is also the age where really our careers are at the top of their potential. This is the part of our life where we are productive, so to speak. And then finally we have the last phase of our life, which happens again between the age 53 to 54, which is now the last part of our life. So it's till the end of this life, however long you live. This is called the contemplating part. So in these three phases, they each have the birth path chakras and the life path chakras. So the birth path chakra will be the same the whole way through your whole life. So all these three phases, the birth path chakra will be the same. And the life path chakras will then change with the phases. So in the first phase, the becoming phase, you will have your birth path number, which will be a number from 1 to 9. These numbers correspond with the chakra system. So traditionally there are 7 chakras, 1 to 7, but in this philosophy we are applying the 9 chakra system. Unfortunately, there's not a test to take the test as you just did for your chakra test for the 9 chakras. So there's only one for the 7 chakras. But in this lecture, we will deal with the 9 chakra system as it corresponds to this life path system. So important that your numbers that you have calculated, they correspond to the chakras. So if you have number 1, it would correspond to the first chakra, the root chakra. If you had number 2, it would correspond to the second chakra, the sacral chakra, and so on and so on. How does this work? See, the birth path chakra relates to what we talked about in the Hatha Yoga lecture about your dharma, your purpose, that special gift, that seed that is planted inside of you, the thing that makes you unique in this life. So that number, when we go into explaining about the chakra system, pay particular attention to the characteristics, the strength, the weaknesses of that particular chakra, because it will help you understand what are my special gifts, what is my dharma. That, according to this philosophy, your life path chakra, that number, is given to you by birth, and it is what makes you unique. It's of course not the whole story, but it's an important piece of the puzzle to understand your dharma. So dharma is not faith. So you can't just sit back and then life will just unfold. You have to see these birth path chakra as it's a gift, but you have to unwrap it and you have to put it into use. So it is a potential, those characteristics, those energies, those qualities are available for you and they're stronger for you. And you will see when you start tapping into those that things are easier for you. So when you start doing things that are corresponding with those qualities of that chakra, it will be easier for you to do. It comes more natural. So when we start tapping into that energy, and that becomes part of who we are. Maybe the jobs we choose, the choices we make, and things will just start to make more sense because according to the philosophy, you will then be on the right path. So that's why it's so important to understand the characteristics of the chakras and see like, okay, so this is my birth path chakra. This is part of the answer to who am I? Why am I here? What are my special gifts? And then as we go through it, have a look at, can I relate to this? Is that where I am right now? Do I feel that I'm actually, that represents me? And if yes, that's amazing. If no, why not? Why haven't I made these choices? Is the job I'm in, am I actually using the qualities and the gifts that have been given to me? And so on and so on. The life path, they are changing with our the 3 phases of our life, but it's a bit the same story. They correspond to the chakra system, so it means that the characteristics of those chakras are particularly available for you. So these, for every phase of your life, you will have your birth path, and then you will have the life path chakra, which will be changing. And hopefully, as you go through this presentation, you will start to understand yourself better based on your chakra test results, which is a picture of where am I right now, how do I show up in this world, and your life path and birth path chakra, understanding like, what are my special qualities? What are my special gifts? How do I use this system to live my best life? All right, so keep these two tools with you as we dive into the chakra system. So before we dive into the chakra system and explaining what it is and how it works, I just want to add that the chakra system and the philosophy surrounding it has many different approaches. Some of you might have already studied this and maybe you've been taught by other teachers, and there are many different approaches to this. So this is how I have chosen to approach it. This is how it resonates with me. When I was taught during my 200-hour training, it actually didn't resonate with me at all at first. I didn't really, this chakra system, it felt foreign to me. I couldn't really relate to it. And it was not until years later when I found my approach to it, I was like, now it starts to make sense. So don't worry if you're one of those students sitting here and thinking, I don't know about this. This doesn't really resonate with me. As we said in the very beginning of this course, you don't have to believe everything we tell you. We are sharing our knowledge. We are sharing this philosophy. And then it is for you to decide, this is resonating with me. This feels like I could use this. And the things that don't resonate with you, just take them in and then maybe put them to the side. And you never know, maybe years from now, they will come back to you, because our yoga path is constantly evolving. And it means that new tools and new realizations enter our path. So the approach that I have chosen to the chakra system is sort of a mix between the Eastern and Western approach. This has to do with just how I am put together and how I understand this system. So it has also elements of science and the yoga philosophy together. So what is the chakra system? If you look at it from, very often, it is called the psychology of yoga, because it is related so strongly to our emotional, our mental state. So it really helps us understand who we are. And it helps us guide us to become the best version of ourselves. So what does it mean? If you translate it from Sanskrit, chakra means a wheel or a disc of light. It's sort of like a vortex or a field of energy, of that life force, that prana that we have talked about earlier in this course. So both in the yoga tradition, in the Ayurvedic tradition, in meditation, we talk about this prana. Chakras and prana are interlinked. It is energy. It is what drives this system. So it's a complex, multidimensional field of energy. It's vibration, it's light, it's color, it's sound, it's frequency, it's temperature. And it is that thing that makes our body move and our mind think. So it's how the prana is organized within our body. Thousands of years ago, yoga already knew this. So in yoga, typically, someone who is on a spiritual path doesn't always need the proof. We have an experience, and that is the proof. So that is very much how yoga works. We step on the mat, it makes us feel good, it works. We don't need science to actually say, yoga works. We feel it. So that's very much the difference between being on a spiritual path and science. Science is all about proof. They need the facts. So the interesting part that is happening now is that this thousands of year old yoga wisdom, science is becoming increasingly interested in this. What is it actually that makes yoga work? Why does it make us feel better? What is it that's happening? So a lot of studies and a lot of investigation into yoga has been going on in recent years. So many ancient esoteric traditions and mystical schools, like the Vedics, the Tantric schools, the Egyptians, the Vaticans, the Mayans, they all understood that there's a connection between our physical and our spiritual worlds, long before modern day science even started looking into this. But what's very interesting now is how modern day science is starting to actually be able to prove a lot of these things that these ancient mystic schools and esoteric traditions have known for thousands of years. But we start having proof, not of everything. There's still not a tool that can actually show that these chakras are real inside of us. So spiritual seekers will be more inclined to believe it because we feel it. The longer you are on this yogic path, the more you start to feel things and accept things simply because of the experiences you have. So that is really, really fascinating. And it always fascinates me so much that thousands of years ago, they knew so much about how our physical and emotional and mental body works without having the instruments, without having the science that we now have. So it's a very interesting time in science that they're starting to dive into these things. And of course, like most of you, I'm also from a Western background. So even though I am on this yogic path, having those Western insights really helps us to understand these things and to be more open to the effects. So basically what the chakra system is, it's a junction point between our consciousness, of spirit and our biology. So it ties together our physical body and our consciousness and our spirituality. The function and importance of the chakras in the body. So each of our 7 main chakras, and as I mentioned in this system, we are actually dealing with 9 chakra system. But they all correspond to our nervous system, our organs, and our psychological and emotional and spiritual states of being. So each chakra will correspond and contain parts of the endocrine system, which you have gone through with Zoe. So that is all our glands producing various hormones. Each chakra will correspond to nerve centers, parts of the nervous system, and major internal organs, and parts of the physical body. Each chakra will also represent a human need, just like some of you might know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In the chakra system, we also have that each chakra represents a different need. They will have a psychological function, for example, sensing or thinking or feeling. They will correspond to our identity. So each chakra represents a different state of our identity. They will be related to the elements, and they will have a frequency and vibration. So when we dive deeper into the different chakras, you will hopefully start to understand a little bit how this is linked, because the chakras are situated alongside our spine, so they vibrate around the spine. So where that chakra is, everything that is around that area in the body, so the organs, the prana, everything, the emotional, the nervous system, everything in that area works together. That is interconnected by that chakra. So we are aiming to have our chakras open and balanced. So that is called, when they are open and balanced, that is basically when we are in homeostasis. It means that our nervous system, our endocrine system, together with the prana, like we are in a state of balance. Our body and our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual body is working in a harmonious way. So that is what we strive to be at, that our organs, our nervous system, our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body is all at a balanced, harmonious place. That is what this chakra system is all about, bringing ourselves into a harmonious place, into a place of homeostasis. When we look at the chakras and we look at how they are behaving, we often relate this to the gunas. So the gunas you have gone through in the previous modules with yoga history. We also touched on it in the chakra system, in the Hatha Yoga lecture. So you have the three gunas, and they represent, when you look at, for example, your chakra results, the underactive, the balanced, the open, and the overactive. So also in the notes, you will find some sheets that dive into the individual chakras that are divided into these three gunas. So the first one, the underactive, is tamasic. So that is when there is inactivity. It is often when the chakra is showing its negative aspects, and that's where we have to work. So when your chakra results are showing up as underactive, it's in a tamasic state. There is low frequency. We need to bring that frequency up so that we can balance out that chakra, so we can open out that chakra, so we can make the characteristics, the positive characteristics of that chakra work in our benefit. We strive to have them open. Sattvic, which is the golden balance. And that is when the chakra, so again, going back to what is the chakra, that is when our physical, emotional, mental body is working in the way it is designed to work, when we are in the best place. So that is all about the positive sides of the positive characteristics of the chakras. That is when you get to enjoy the benefits. That is when we are looking at it from our life path and our birth path chakras. When the chakras corresponding to those numbers are in an open place, you get to actually tap into the positive side, to the qualities of that chakra. So when it is overactive, it's rajasic. The frequency is too high. And again, you have to look at it in relation to the other chakras. So let's say you have one chakra that is very overactive, and all the others are underactive. You have to pay attention to, or maybe they're open, but you have to bring everything in balance. So overactive is also not good. It's great if you are on 100% in all of them and they're all open. Amazing. You have a high frequency. You are basically, by having a high frequency also means that the qualities are on full volume. So someone who is on very low frequency would have less energy in the chakra. So let's say a chakra has certain qualities, but you are on a very low frequency. So you want to turn the frequency up. So basically what we're striving to do is high frequency, everything open and balanced. That means that we have access to all these amazing gifts and qualities of the chakras. And it means that our physical body, our emotional body, and our mental body is operating in the best possible way. So overactive, when something is overactive in relation to the rest, you either have to bring everything else up to that level or decrease the activity of the overactive. But very often it is about bringing the underactive up so that everything is open and balanced. Don't worry if you find this a little bit complicated and a little bit hard to relate to, especially if you're very new to subtle body anatomy and the more spiritual part of the yoga philosophy. This can be a little bit hard to grasp. So, but hopefully as we go through the lecture, it will start to make more sense to you. So before we start diving into the individual chakras, as I mentioned, we are striving to have all the chakras open and balanced. How do we do that? We do that with our yoga practice, with yoga asana. We can do that with kriyas, the different hatha yoga cleansing rituals. We can do that with mudras. Remember, mudras are either by gestures with your hands, or it can also be mudras with your whole body. They guide and connect the subtle body and energy. We can do it with pranayama. Pranayama is probably one of the most direct ways to work on your chakras, because prana rides on the breath. So let's say, for example, that your root chakra was underactive. You can use certain pranayamas to open up that chakra and stimulate that chakra. So pranayama is extremely powerful in bringing the energies in our body back to a homeostasis. Mantras, because remember, it's all energy, and energy is vibration. So think about in your own body, think about how your heart has a certain vibration, how your throat, when you talk, there's a vibration. So because we are all energy, and because this chakra system is made up of energy, mantras and sound and vibration can be very, very powerful to help open and balance out your chakras. The elements. So as I mentioned, every chakra will be related to different elements. So if you know that one of your chakras is underactive, using those elements to help stimulate the frequency on that chakra can be very powerful. Some of you might be really into stones and essential oils. It also can be very powerful. We're not going to dive into that. That is a whole study in itself. But there's a lot of information you can find out there about how different stones and crystals can influence a different chakra. So each chakra also has certain stones and crystals and oils that you can work with. Meditation, so that's all pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana. So meditation is incredibly powerful when it comes to directing our subtle body energy, just like pranayama. Remember, these both pranayama and meditation also are higher limbs. And the subtle body, our pranic body, our emotional and mental body, as they are much more subtle, meditation and pranayama can be incredibly powerful tools to work with these. Now let's dive into the individual chakras within the chakra system. So we'll first have a look at the root chakra. The Muladarachakwa chakra, which would be chakra number 1. So this is as a reference for your life path and birth path numbers. This would be the number 1. The first chakra, the Muladhara, is the root of your being, and it establishes the deepest connection with your physical body, your environment, and with this earth. The root chakra is responsible for your sense of safety and security. The root chakra is comprised of whatever grounds you to stability in your life. This includes your basic needs such as food, water, shelter, and safety, as well as your more emotional needs such as letting go of fear. When these needs are met, you feel grounded and safe, and you tend to worry less day to day. The Muladhara is the most instinctual of all chakras. It's your survival center, and your fight and flight response is initiated from this chakra. This is your primal and animal nature. The name Mulattara Chakra, in Sanskrit, Mula means root and Adara means support or base. It's located just at the base of the spine, at the pelvic floor and the first 3 vertebrae. The element that it relates to is earth, and the color is red. So how to understand these characteristics and how to use them is that by knowing, for example, that first of all, you know the location. So also physical pain or anything going on in that area of the body can have to do with your chakra. If you, for example, see from your chakra test results that your Muladhara chakra is underactive, and you're also experiencing pain in that area of the body. So you will start to understand, the more you dive into these elements or these characteristics, you start to see how everything is connected. In yoga, when something hurts, it's never just a pain, it's always connected to something else. And mostly there's a physical and emotional and a mental aspects to it. So you always have to look, okay, now from my test results, for example, I see my root chakra is underactive. Oh, I also often experience pain in the lower back. Then you have to start asking yourself the questions, what came first? Is the pain in your lower back maybe due to the fact that you're not feeling grounded and safe and secure? Or is it the other way around? So there's always in yoga, there's always a physical, an emotional, and a mental aspect of anything that's going on with us, because everything is connected. So to heal ourselves, we need to figure out what is the root cause. Where does this come from? Whatever is going on with you, you start then asking questions. Is it this? Is it that? And the chakra system is just another tool to help you understand your physical body and your emotional body better. To start asking better questions when something is going on with you. Because if you go to your doctor and say like, oh, my lower back's hurting, your doctor would most likely never say like, oh, I think your root chakra might be out of balance. And you can imagine that if you have an underactive root chakra and the cause is that you're feeling insecure or you're feeling ungrounded and you have a lot of anxiety, and that causes you to maybe have pain in your lower back. If you get pain medicine and maybe even physical therapy, it might not help you. It might not make the pain go away, because the pain comes from a emotional and a mental place. So understanding the location of these chakras is also being then start to be curious about when something goes on in that area of the body, what are the questions I have to ask myself to figure out how do I heal myself. So the color, how can you use the color? It really depends on your personality also. Some people are extremely visual and have a strong relation with colors, and I've known people that also in their meditation they see colors. I've had students that actually in their meditation before doing the chakra test kept saying, oh, I keep seeing the color red. And then in their chakra test results, the Muladarachakwa, the root chakra, showed up as underactive, as if the body is telling you, you know, you have to do some work here. That particular student also had a lot of issues with anxiety and insecurities. So it all connected together, and it gives you then tools to know where to go from here. Instead of just dealing with a physical pain, it became then a combination and healing that what is going on mentally and emotionally, to also then start to feel more secure and safe in the body, so that you can then in turn make the pain go away, to put it very simply. Some of the aspects on these lists, we're not going to dive deep into them. These are more for your reference, and I'm explaining how to use them. So when it comes to the petals on the lotus, when you see the Muladarachakwa, you see here the symbol is in the background on this slide. It is represented by a lotus flower with 4 petals. These 4 petals each have sounds. So we're not, again, this chakra philosophy is incredibly complex, and there's so many elements of it. So we're not diving into every element. And it is for you to then, if you're if you're someone who is incredibly interested in mantras and chanting, diving into what are the different sounds of each petal. But basically the bija or the mantra or the seed sounds, they add up to the sound lam. So the sound, the vibration of the root chakra is generated by chanting lam. And again, just like in Om, there are 3 syllables to this sound. So when we chant Om, we don't actually chant Om, we chant A, O, Om. So 3 parts, and that sort of generates the vibration. And just like here, you have the sound is lam. So when you chant it, and you can chant it either out loud or you can chant it inside of you. With chanting and mantras, it is said that they are just as powerful when we are internally chanting them, because the vibration will still be there. But personally, I feel that when chanting them out loud, you will feel the effects more intensely. But it's something that comes also with practice. So you could also, like, again, it depends what resonates with you. But let's say your root chakra needed to be boosted or opened. Simply chanting Lam continuously can help with that. The rights of the Muladhara Chakra is the right to have. I have a right to be here. I have a right to exist. I have a right to have. So when you look at the Muladhara Chakra, as it is our sense of safety and security, and it is also the first chakra that develops. All our chakras develop. They're all there, but they develop at different points in our life. So as we go through our life, certain chakras will start developing more. The Muladhara Chakra is the first chakra to really develop, and it develops already when we are in the womb. And it, especially within the 12 months, the foundation of this chakra is developed. Doesn't mean that this chakra is then set for life. As I said, chakras are continuously evolving with us. But it means that if something happens to you within those first parts that influences the root chakra, you are likely to carry things with you the rest of your life, or not that it can't be healed, but having to work on this one. So as an example, as this is all about safety, security, the right to be here, and when we are infants, we are highly relying on our parents to take care of us, to be there for us, to nurture us, to feed us, to come to us when we are crying. So if that is not happening when you are an infant, and that feeling of not feeling safe and secure is, if that's compromised, in your system, there is almost a voice embedded saying, I don't have a right to be here because apparently I'm not being fed or given any attention or emotional support. So that is embedded so deeply in our energetic body that we can carry that wound deep into our adulthood if we are not healing it. So our parents play a very crucial role in this first part of our lives for the development of a strong, stable, open Muladhara Chakra. And of course, our parents are also doing their best. I'm not here to dish on parents and say that parents don't do a good job. And very often, it's not deliberately that they try to damage your Muladhara Chakra, your root chakra. But you could, as an example, let's say your mother was incredibly stressed during her pregnancy, or physically or emotionally ill, in an abusive relationship, or going through a lot of trauma in her life. It can be many, many things. That is reflected again. She is carrying you. You are inside that energy. So it can affect your development of your Muladhara Chakra. So that is when the root cause of why your Muladhara Chakra is underactive. It can be very, very early stages in life. But it can also be later on in life. Whenever something is challenging our sense of stability, safety, security, our right to be here. So if our Muladhara from birth is strong and stable, we are more likely to weather the storms whenever we are confronted with something that confronts our sense and our right to be here. But if it is already a little bit weak from the beginning, you are likely through your life to struggle a lot more with things like feelings of, I don't have a right to be here, fears and anxieties. And sometimes if we don't know where it comes from, if we didn't know our mom was stressed when she was carrying us, or maybe if parents are going through a tough time, it can be many, many aspects that play in. Remember, in yoga philosophy, everything is connected and everything is energy. So we are also connected to the energy of our parents. As we grow up, it can be other things challenging the Muladhara Chakra. You lose a job, you lose a partner, you lose a relative, anything that has been something that has given you stability and sense of security in your life. If those conditions are taken away or challenged, of course it affects us, and it will then affect that energy in your body, and it will compromise your sense of security and stability. So from experience, what I've seen from a lot of our students, so many students nowadays, so many people, not just like luckily the people that come and join a yoga teacher training, they've already recognized and are already open, I want to work on myself. So you will see that when you join a yoga teacher training, yes, it's about becoming a yoga teacher, but so much of it is also about figuring out, who am I? Why am I here? How do I make myself a better person? How do I get through this life in the best possible way? And these are incredibly valuable tools to help us understand how to live our best life. I personally studied psychology before, and some of you might also be psychology students. But I always missed a little bit in psychology that it was very brain and mind focused, except for Carl Jung, for example, who is also talking a lot about the subconscious and has actually referenced also a lot of the yogic philosophy. So when I found this, I felt like, yes, this is the missing puzzle that I always missed in psychology, because it is in our whole body. See, our chakras are in our body, and they're connecting the physical body with our emotional body, with our mental body. It's not just up in our brain. And that is also why when you step on your yoga mat, and we talked a little bit about this in the chakra presentation, we step on our yoga mat and we start moving our body, and things come up, emotions come up, images come up, memories come up. And it is all because we are tapping into our subconscious, into our emotional, and into our deeper layers. Remember, as I mentioned, every cell of our body holds part of our history, and the chakra system is so essential to understand this. So, I'm drifting here. Anyways, so the biggest challenge and when we say challenge, it is something that can then create an instability in this chakra. So fear, a fear of not being safe and secure and having a right to exist. We're not diving into what planets, it's an entire study in itself. We're also not diving into the deities in this. I'm just simply mentioning them in case you are curious and you want to dive deeper into how the different gods, the deities are related to the different chakras. So you have here a list for future reference. The sense organ is the nose. Knowing what sense organ connects to the different chakras will help you also to find your healing. So smells, grounding smells that make you feel safe, can also help you to open the root chakra and stabilize your root chakra. You probably noticed it, how some smells, I don't know, I'm very sensitive to these kind of things, but how some smells just instantly make you feel grounded and safe. And it's probably because at some point in our life, we were in a very grounded and safe situation when we smelled that smell. You have it also when you go on a holiday and you remember the smell of a place and how it made you feel. So smell can be incredibly powerful to help you feel grounded and safe. And again, the predominant sense is then smell. So when a root chakra is blocked or overactive, especially when it's blocked, or also called underactive, you will see typical signs: excessive negativity, fear, anxiety. Eating disorders are it's not, of course, again, these are not all the answers. Life is complex, and we are complex beings. Chakras are just part of understanding this. And when I say eating disorders, it's not always because your root chakra is compromised, but what we see a lot is that people with eating disorders often have an underactive root chakra. And the eating disorder, as some of you might be dealing with eating disorders, we see this a lot with our students also. Eating disorders are rarely about food. It's very often about control, And going back to how this chakra is related to our basic needs. I need to be fed to survive. When I'm an infant, someone needs to feed me so that I know that I have a right to be here. So the eating disorder can become a tool to feel, okay, if I eat, I can control this. I have a right to be here. I'm in control of myself. I feel myself. It's also a very physical chakra. It's very related to our body. So by feeling the body, also you see people that, for example, have other conditions like cutting or hurting themselves intentionally simply to feel. So it can also be related to the fact that the root chakra is underactive and they have a need to feel, I have a right to be here, I exist, I'm in this body. I am, you hear often with people that have underactive root chakras that they don't really feel as if they're home in their body. When it is overactive, it is the flip side. People, hypermaterialism, greed, extreme need to manifest, gluttony. So you also see people like, and again, this is not all people, but you see people having a huge house, a big car. They own it all, they have it all, they have a lot of material stuff around them. But if you were to really dive deeper, you would see that they're incredibly insecure and not feeling very safe, or and they might have a really small heart and feel very insecure inside of themselves. And all these material things that are gathering around themselves is to, yes, I'm here, I'm manifesting myself in this world. Think about another example. When we have our heart broken, it feels like someone pulled a rock under our feet. You literally lose the ground because you lose that one person that made you feel safe and secure, at least if you were in a good relationship. And what do we often do? A lot of people comfort eat. See, comfort eating, it's like we eating to make ourselves feel heavier, grounded, to feel ourselves, to not lose ground. So these are some of the aspects for you to, and this is not at all covering everything about, and not all aspects of an underactive or overactive Muladarachakwa Chakra, but hopefully it will help you to understand you in that part better. The next chakra is the Sacral Chakra, the second chakra, Svadhisthana. It is your passion and pleasure center. It is the center of creativity and sexuality. While the root chakra is satisfied with survival, the second chakra seeks pleasure and enjoyment. The gift of this chakra is experiencing our lives through feelings and sensations. It is the center of feeling, emotion, pleasure, sensuality, intimacy, and connection. The energy of this chakra allows you to let go, to move, and to feel change and transformation occurring within your body. It allows you to experience this moment as it is in its own fullness. The Sacral Chakra is also your center of creativity. Passion is basically the fuel of creative energy. Everything you create originates from the energy of your second chakra. So think about it. The most powerful thing that we can do as a human is create another human. If you take that energy that goes into creating another human and you channel that energy to other creative processes, it could be creating a painting, dancing, making a yoga sequence, anything that requires creativity. It all comes from the same energy. The Sacral Chakra, Svadhisthana, again, the Sanskrit name means Sva and Adhisthana. Swa means one's own, and Adhisthana means abode or seat, the dwelling place of the self. This one is located above the pubic bone and below the navel, and it encompasses the genital region and the hypogastric plexus. The element is water, everything fluid. So also think about it, like your second chakra, it loves vinyasa flows, it loves dancing, moving, flowing. The color is orange. Again, just like with the root chakra, you can use this color either to stimulate this chakra. Painting your room orange could help. Wearing orange, especially if you're someone who has a lot of connection with colors. Or you can use it in your meditation, either visualizing the color orange, or you might even see the color orange, and it will already give you a sign about something in that region of your body. The petals here of the lotus is 6. Again, we're not diving deeper into that, but just referring to that the sound here is vam. So again, if you're someone who really likes to play with the mantras and the vibrations of mantras, vam is here, and same approach as lam for the root chakra. It has the 3 sounds, vam. So if you're chanting it either out loud or inside your body, you try to emphasize these 3 letters within the word, making these different sounds, generating that vibration in your body, using that vibration to heal you or open the chakra. If you, for example, see, we see it here in Bali, also in Hinduism, but also in India, mantras and chanting are used just like medicine. So you would go to a doctor, and the doctor would say, like, okay, chant this mantra for the next 3 weeks, and you will start to feel better. It is just not something we are used to in Western medicine, but in Eastern medicine, especially in Hinduism, in India, here in Bali, we see it. Many other areas of Asia, I'm sure it is also present, where they really start tapping into more like this energy part of healing our bodies. The rights of this chakra is to feel and to want. So again, a different energy than the first chakra, which was all about existence, a right to be here. This chakra is all about feeling and wanting and desire. It's connected to your endocrine system, to your ovaries and your testicles. The physical association is your womb, your genitals, your kidney, and your bladder. So again, just like we talked about with the root chakra, if something is going on in that part of your body, always be curious. Is it just a physical thing, or could there be an emotional root cause, a mental root cause? So let's say you always have, just an example, you always have kidney issues or bladder issues. If you keep always solving it with a Western medicine, and if it's an emotional or mental root cause, the medicine will most likely not cure it. It will just keep coming back. Maybe it is that your second chakra is underactive. You are creatively challenged. You're suppressing that part of yourself. Maybe you were brought up in a culture or family that doesn't support your creativity. Let's say, for example, your number is 2. Your birth path number is 2. And one of you might now have either 2 is your birth path number or is your life path number. And you might think like, but I'm not particularly creative, and I'm not a very feely, touchy person. I'm not very emotional person. Well, according to this, in your chakra DNA, you should be. You have those abilities. You might not have explored them. So maybe the key for you would be like, okay, I know now that is actually part of my chakra DNA. Maybe I should explore that side of me. There can be many different reasons why we have suppressed certain sides of ourselves. And as I said, it's not faith. So it's not just going to present itself automatically. We have to actually make use of it. And then you'll see when you start tapping into it, those things will come natural to you. But let's say you're someone who is actually born with a lot of creativity, but you're brought up in a very, very rigid family who does not support those kind of choices in your life, who do not believe that being an artist is a worthy trade, or studying art or dancing or even being a yoga teacher can also be a struggle. Like I've seen many of our students that came from backgrounds where like, oh, but I'm just a yoga teacher, where being a lawyer or a doctor is what was expected. So again, go back, be curious when something physically is going on, Could there be an emotional or mental root cause, a cultural root cause? And of course, it can also be the other way around. Actually, a physical illness can make us emotionally and mentally ill too. So if there is something that has occurred physically, it can actually work the other way around. So, an example of that, it doesn't have anything to do with the second chakra, but what we've seen is a lot of people with digestive issues developed depressions. And for a long time, it was believed that the depression caused the digestive issues, but it was actually the other way around. There were some very interesting studies on this. So just as an example to show that the physical thing that is going on with you can be just a physical thing. But as everything is connected, it will connect to your emotional and your mental being as well. And our job is to figure out where's the root cause so that we can do the healing there, so that we can do our work there. Back to the second chakra, the psychological function is movement and connection. So this chakra loves to move. We love movement, physical movement, mental movement, thought movement, anything that is movement and vibration and fluidity, just like water as well. And connection. Here it is connection not in a love way, but connection to our friends, family, other people, intimacy. So also people, for example, with a second chakra, not only creativity, but also often they have a very unique ability to connect people, bring people together, create community. Identity is emotional, your emotional identity. The development stage is a little bit later than the root chakra. So the root chakra started developing already in the womb, whereas this one starts around the age of 6 months. It doesn't mean it wasn't there before, but it's really starts to develop there until the age of 2 years. So that is when it's sort of developing. Again, it's in movement through our whole life, but especially that time, it's so incredibly important that it gets the nurturing in the surroundings that it's needed. So let's say you, in that time of your life, again, not to blame parents for everything, but let's say something happens in that time that compromises your feeling of the right to feel, touch, intimacy. If those are compromised in that time of your life, it will likely compromise your chakra for the rest of your life. So that is why is it important to know the development states. It's because if the chakra is influenced while it's still developing, the scars that are left are likely to stay with us through our life, and it's likely to be something we always have to work on. Again, the good news is everything can be healed. Everything can be worked on with the right tools. The challenge here is shame or guilt. How to understand this is that in a lot of cultures, as I already touched on, creativity and sexuality is something that there can be a lot of taboo around it, or lack of acceptance. There are also a lot of cultures where sexuality is not something we talk about. It's not really, a lot of cultures don't accept everyone's sexuality. If you're not heterosexual, for example, and you are living in a society where that is not accepted, that can also bring your sacral chakra into an underactive, because you feel you do not have a right to feel. You do not have a right to feel your feelings because the world around you is telling you that they are wrong. So they can bring instability again in your chakra system, which can then affect you again physically, emotionally, and mentally. So a lot of shame or guilt around this second chakra, both on the sexuality part, but also on the creative part. The planets, we're not really diving into that. This is just for future reference, that you know which planets these are connected to, and also the deities. The sense organ here is tongue. Everything that has to do with taste. So certain foods, certain tastes can be incredibly healing. We also know that there are certain foods that are like an aphrodisiac. They're supposed to stimulate our sexual energy. Think about oysters, strawberries, chocolate, go on. So again, the predominant sense here is taste. And think about also when we are intimate with someone sexually and how important kissing is and how we feel that that affects our whole system. So again, how everything is connected. When this chakra is not open and balanced, so when it's, for example, overactive, it means indulgence, addiction to pleasure, obsession, codependency. So when it's overactive, it typically goes into the extremities. So people, for example, if they have an overactive root chakra, maybe they are a little bit promiscuous, many sexual partners, because the sexual activity becomes sort of, it feeds them to feel like they get addicted to feeling. They're very likely to become addicted to substances. They want to feel. They cannot feel enough. It goes to extremities, drugs, drug addictions, but also overindulgence is in food, sensations. That's especially when you see how overactive second chakra behaves, either overactive sexual behavior or addictions. The underactive second chakra is more the codependency and the clinginess. So because they don't really feel they have a right to feel, they can become very dependent, and they almost feed off the emotions of another person. The other person sort of justifies their right to feel. Very ruled by emotions, almost no sexual drive, because they don't really feel they actually have a right to it. It's underactive, like all their sexual and creative energies have been suppressed, and there's a lot of shame and guilt around it. So that is the flip side of the overactive second chakra. The third chakra, Manipura, the solar plexus, this chakra is the core of our personality and our identity, the identity of our ego. The third chakra is also the center of willpower. While the sacral chakra seeks pleasure and enjoyment, the third chakra is all about the perception of who you are. The gift of this chakra is sensing your personal power, being confident, responsible, and reliable. The energy of this chakra allows you to transform inertia into action and movement. It's the power of transformation. It allows you to meet challenges and move forward in your life. The third chakra is the center of your self-esteem, your willpower, your self-discipline, as well as the warmth in your personality. So people, for example, with a third chakra as their life path, they are doers. They get things done. A lot of willpower, a lot of go, a lot of action, getting things done. That is, of course, if they're tapping into that energy. So again, remember, your birth path is not a given. You have to work on it. You have to start being curious. Am I actually making use of these gifts that I've been given? So that's just an example of someone with the birth path free, or the free somewhere in your life path will tell you that, okay, I have actually abilities to get things done. I have willpower. So that is really the key of this one. So the third chakra, the solar plexus, the Manipura. Manipura means jeweled city or lustrous gem. The location is basically what it says in the name. It's located around the navel in the area of the solar plexus and up towards the breastbone. The element is fire. And the color is yellow. And again, you can use these colors, as we've talked about before, how you can use them to stimulate that chakra. The right here is the right to act. The sound again is ram. So if you were to chant this, it would be ram. Again, like working into all the three parts of the sound. It is connected to your adrenals and your pancreas. So again, typically if you have something going on with your adrenals, it can be connected to your third chakra. Again, you have to then look into what is the root cause. But what you see a lot with the third chakra, because it is so much doing, if it's been doing too much, especially if you've been working too hard, you've been pushing yourself too hard, go, adrenal exhaustion can be something that happens from that. So if we've been pushing ourselves too hard, that acting too much, the adrenals can then suffer from it. The physical association here is your digestive system, your liver, and your gallbladder. And again, that relates very well to the element of fire. Think about our digestive fire. This area of the body is where things are done. So of course, if this chakra is not balanced, our digestive system can be affected, our liver and our gallbladder. So again, what we mentioned before, not to repeat, but it's so important to always look for the root cause. Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it mental? Keep asking questions. The psychological function here is will. And the identity is our ego identity. It develops later than the first and the second chakra. Actually, around the stage of 18 to 42 months is when this chakra is developing. And just like with the other chakras, if something is affecting the development of the chakras in this state, it will likely be much more a rooted instability in the chakras than if it's something affecting you later on in life. Because as mentioned, we can also, our chakras can at any point in our life become under or overactive. This is not a fixed system. The biggest challenge here is shame or embarrassment or fear of failure. Think about it again. These are doers, willpowers. So it's basically something that can really challenge this chakra is the fear of not being enough, shame or embarrassment related to this. Again, the planets, we're not diving into it, or the deities. The sense organs here are eyes. So again, if you were to work on this chakra, something that has to do with sight, visual meditations can be very powerful. As the predominant sense here is sight. But it also means, again, let's say something was wrong with those sense organs. It can be that the root cause is actually connected to this third chakra. So sometimes even you can say that, let's say your eyes, it can be that the root cause is actually somewhere in the physical association, in your digestive system, in your liver or your gallbladder. So again, there are so many connections in this system, and it's so important. I cannot emphasize it enough. Keep asking questions whenever there's something going on with you. So how does this third chakra behave when it's under or overactive? Overactive is typically excessive need for control, manipulative, abuse of power, and anger and irritability. So when you meet these people that are hungry for power and they're manipulating for power, they're doers, yes, and they get things done, but often at the benefit of others. So again, it's never overactive or underactive are never good. We always want them to be open. It's great to raise the vibration of all. So let's say you have that your test results shows a very skewed picture, and you have some that are very, very overactive and others that are very underactive. Likely you're supposed to work on the underactive ones to bring everything up to a higher frequency. The opposite of a overactive third chakra, so the underactive chakra, is the think about it. This is a doer, the right to act, will, getting things done. So when it's underactive, you feel helpless. You have lack of purpose, no direction, no ambition. You feel inferior. You don't really feel you have the power to get things done. And again, going back to if, for example, you have adrenal exhaustion, this is exactly how you feel. So your sense of helplessness, lack of energy, no power, it can come from an adrenal exhaustion. The reason why I particularly mention this is that adrenal exhaustion is very often not picked up by Western doctors. It is something that naturopath and more Eastern doctors are very good at picking up on. And it is something that a lot of people actually have been confronted with without knowing they had it. Because we live in very fast-paced societies, and very often we do more than we are capable of. And this is all the energy is coming from our third chakra, the energy to do and get things done. And if we push ourselves too hard, eventually we are just empty. And then it goes into underactive, and we can't find the will anymore. We cannot find this power. So that is the third chakra. Our fourth chakra, the Heart Chakra, Anahata. See, this chakra is particularly important as, of course, it is connecting to our heart, the center of our being. So it also, when we look at the chakra system, the three first chakras, the first, second, and third, are considered our lower chakras. They represent also our more primal needs, our lower needs. Not that they're not important, but they are more basic in what we need to exist in this world. The heart chakra represents that the heart always has to be connected. So there always has to be heart, you have to have the heart in it. So the heart chakra also connects to the higher chakras. It is the binding between the lower and the higher chakras. And there should always be a connection to the heart. The heart chakra is the wellspring of love, warmth, compassion, and joy. Anahata moves love through your life. It is the center of your deep bonds with other beings, your sense of caring and compassion, your feelings of self-love, altruism, generosity, kindness, and respect. Anahata is also an integrating and unifying chakra. As I mentioned, it's integrating and unifying the higher and the lower chakras. It is bringing wholeness, and as such, it is your healing center. In most spiritual traditions, they recognize that love is the ultimate healing force. And we talk about this in yoga all the time. And you definitely touched on this when you talked about the yamas and the niyamas. The energy of Anahata allows us to recognize that we are part of something larger, that we are interconnected within an intricate web of relationships extending through life and the universe. So we are part of something bigger than ourselves. Anahata allows us to recognize and get in touch with the sacred and fundamental truth that runs through all of life and connects everything together. The way of the heart, or the path of the heart, is living your life from the energy center of love. So it's also important here to remember that the heart has two sides, the front side of the heart and the back side of the heart. In yoga philosophy, we like to see as if the front side of the heart is our compassion and love towards the world and others. And in the back side of the heart, that is our plug into the universe. That is where the seed is planted. That is where our dharma is connected. So that is our connection to the source in the back of our heart. So that is also why often when we do yoga postures that are opening, so when we say heart opening, it can be a bit misleading because often we're referring to back bends. it's very important to understand that the heart has two sides. So we have to both extend the back side of the heart and the front side of the heart. And as most of you, I am sure, would have experienced, when we start moving our body around our heart center, stuff comes up. We have so much emotional connection with that part of our body. There is so much emotion stored around our energetic heart. So, for the people who have the number 4 as your birth path chakra, typically these are people who are very nurturing. They seek helping others. Very often they choose professions such as doctors, nurses, caregivers, yoga teachers. Yoga teachers are also very known for having very active, sometimes a little bit overactive heart chakras. So people that are loving, giving, compassionate, and they try to seek that in how they help others. They have this innate need to help others. So if you're someone with the number 4, the fourth chakra as your birth path, and again, it's not a job, but it's the reason why we thrive in certain professions, because we're tapping into the characteristics and the energies of that chakra. So definitely as a 4, be curious also about, what have I chosen as my life profession, and is there something out there that would feed into this love energy even more. The Sanskrit name means unhurt, unstruck, and unbeaten. The location is at the center of the chest. So as I said, there's a front side and a back side. It's our energetic heart. The element is air. Think about it also when we breathe, and how even when we are breathing, if we, for example, feeling grief, how that whole center around our heart, we can hardly breathe. Again, it's all the emotions. So air and breath, pranayama is incredibly powerful when it comes to your heart chakra. The color is, strangely enough, I always found green. I always would have associated the heart with red, but the chakra color here is green. Not diving into the petals, the bija, the mantras, the seed sound is yam. So if you want to meditate and heal your heart chakra, yam would be the sound. Again, making sure you get all the sounds of the free sounds, the yam. The right is to love. It is connected to your thymus and your immune system. So again, this is so incredibly important, that again, how everything is connected. You can see actually that when our heart chakra is underactive, our immune system is very compromised. You can also see how sometimes when we are sad or grief, when there's something going on that is compromising the feelings around our energetic heart, it affects our immune system. We more easily get sick. We are more susceptible to viruses, to external factors. So our heart, our energetic heart, is incredibly connected to our immune system. The physical associations is, of course, the cardiac plexus, the heart, the lungs, breast, the lymphatic system, the circulatory and cardiovascular system, arms and hands. So in our arms, we have the meridians running on the outside of our, like alongside the thumb side of our arm and the pinky side of our arm. You have the meridian lines, the energetic lines running to your heart and your lungs. So that is why, like also when something going on in our arms and our hands, it can be connected to our heart. So when you see, for example, people that have a stroke, they often feel numbness, or a heart attack, they feel the numbness in one arm. So that is because of the energetic connections to the meridians running into the arms. The psychological function is love, and the identity is social identity. So it's the connection to others. It's important here to see the difference between the second chakra, which is intimacy, whereas this one is a higher connection. It is more the unconditional love also. It develops again later at the age of around 3.5 years to 7 years. And here again, it's so incredibly important that that part, our energetic heart, our heart chakra is nurtured through this time so that we develop a strong, open heart chakra. Or it might be compromised for the rest of our lives. And again, it can be affected by, the biggest challenge for the heart chakra is grief, when we lose someone. A story I really liked here that one of my teachers told me was about a husband who lost his wife. She passed away, and after she passed away, the husband developed a severe case of asthma, and he was always sick. Like it started like he kept getting the flu, and then it finally, like the flu developed into a chronic asthma. And it wasn't until he kept going to doctors, more Western doctors, and it wasn't until he came across a more spiritual, Eastern-minded doctor who made the connection for him with the grief of losing his wife that he had never dealt with. And he was carrying that grief around in his heart center, which made him physically sick. It made his lungs, which are connected to the heart chakra, sick. So when he then understood that it was the grief and he started dealing with the grief, he started accepting the death of his wife and nurturing himself and trying to heal that wound, that trauma that had developed and manifested itself physically. He actually could heal himself. He would no longer get sick. The asthma went away. So this is just a story, and whether this story is true or not, it doesn't really matter. It is about illustrating how strong our emotions can manifest themselves as physical illnesses. And I am so sure that some of you listening to this, there's something that you can resonate. We've all lost people. We've all felt the physical impact it has on us when we lose someone, when we lose that love connection, either by losing someone, a relative or a loved one, a partner. Breakup. It's also been shown that a breakup, like when our heart breaks, it physically breaks. There is something that happens. It's not just something we say, oh, I'm heartbroken. There's actually a physical condition. And something that I find incredibly fascinating is that around our heart, the pericardium, which is a protective shield around our heart. It is also when someone needs to have their heart restarted, it goes in and it's what makes your heart beat, that pericardium. It has been measured that the frequency of pericardium can be measured in distance. So whenever your heart beats, the heartbeat resonates beyond you. The energy of that heartbeat goes far beyond our physical body and can connect with other heartbeats. I thought that was such an incredibly beautiful thing to see. I'll see if I can find that documentary for you and share it with you, where they actually measure how two heartbeats can energetically meet far beyond the physical body. So it's just again to illustrate how incredibly strong this chakra system is, and our heart is so essential to this system. The sense organ is skin. So also you will see again how things are connected. So if you have a skin condition, be curious, is this connected to my heart? Is this connected to an emotional? It could be connected to grief. It could be connected to loss. So again, always ask questions. Be curious how things are connected so that you can heal yourself. The predominant sense here is touch. Again, like one of the best things is getting a huge big hug. Feeling someone touch you physically. And how that indirectly touches your heart. So if you have, for example, an underactive heart chakra, things like getting a massage, hugging people, touching people, letting someone touch you can be so incredibly healing. So when the heart chakra is imbalanced, so when it is underactive, it often shows off in jealousy, codependency, selfish behavior, making love conditional. It's what you see a lot is when we choose our partners, if we're lucky, we are in a healthy relationship. And our partner is, in many levels, we have chosen that partner because we love that person. We fall in love with that person. But what very often happens, especially if our chakra system is not in homeostasis, it's not open and balanced, especially with the heart chakra, we can, and not only the heart chakra, we can also, in our partners, we try to fix our own wounds. So there are two patterns here. We choose a partner because we see in that partner something that completes ourselves, something that can heal a wound. But another person can never complete you. It sounds so beautiful when we say, like, you complete me. But actually, another person should not complete you. Another person should complement you, like better together. But you are both whole, and together you become better. Not that you're fixing each other. Because what happens is, if your relationship is based on healing each other's wounds, eventually when those wounds are healed in either one or both people, the relationship has no foundation for existence anymore, because it has done its thing. The wound is healed. So that is also why sometimes relationships that are not so healthy, we sometimes outgrow them because they were there to serve a certain purpose, to heal a wound. So you can have this pattern where a person recognizes that another person has something that can make them feel whole. Another pattern is also when two wounds are attracted to each other. They recognize the same pain in another person and they mistake it for love, because they see themselves in the other person. And we always like to see something that reminds us, something that is familiar, it feels safe. So relationships like that also can be destructive, and they rarely last. Healthy relationships are when we recognize the fullness, the completeness in the other person, and we fall in love with them for that, not for what they do for us. We fall fully in love with that other person. We love them for who they are and not for what they do to us. So especially when the heart is underactive, unhealthy relationships can happen because we try to fix ourselves through another person. So again, I'm not saying go pick your partners apart and your relationships apart. Just be curious. And it, like for me at least personally, it was very insightful to also look back at past relationships and understanding why certain relationships maybe didn't work. Not always a romantic relationship, it can also be with friends, relatives, when the love becomes conditional or healing another wound or there's a dependency, it is not a pure love. So what happens when it's overactive? And that's when you see these behaviors of always putting themselves first. Overactive hearts. As I mentioned, like yoga teachers can have the tendency to have too big of a heart. And you might ask yourself or say like, yeah, but how can that be a bad thing? How can you love too much? What happens when our heart is too big? We often, we just want to love and we want to save the world. And we end up putting everyone else first, and we come not second, we come third or fourth or fifth. And we become these warriors of love, and we're trying to save everyone. And eventually we become depleted. We cannot save everyone. Also, people with a little bit overactive heart or too big of a heart, they find it very, very hard to hurt other people. And I'm not telling you should hurt other people, but sometimes we need to tell people what they need to hear and not what they want to hear. So, and they will thank you later. So being able to tell someone the truth and what they need to hear to progress with their own healing is also something that is a sign of you having an open and a balanced chakra and not an overactive chakra. Because when our heart is overactive, we also start to feed on, we want more. We get a little bit addicted to that love feeling, and we don't like it when other people don't love us. So this tendency to only want to spread love and not truth can be a pattern, and you actually see it with both people with an underactive and an overactive. The root cause is just different. With the overactive, it's more the addiction to love, whereas the underactive, it's because it's become a condition. I must do this so that I deserve the love of the other. So I can only say what the person wants to hear, not what the person needs to hear, because my love is conditioned. So yeah, that is one of definitely not that the Anahata chakra is more important than the other chakras, but as I'm saying, it's the connective force, and we are now moving into the higher chakras, so which makes this chakra also incredibly essential to the whole system. Now let's move on to the fifth chakra, and we are now in what we call the higher chakras. So everything above the heart is considered the higher chakras. Again, we need all our chakras, but as I said, the lower chakras are representing more our basic needs, and then the heart is the connective force, and the higher chakra becomes our higher needs, our more sophisticated. So you will see that the higher chakras also become more spiritual in nature. The fifth chakra, the throat chakra, the Vishuddha, is the first of the three higher spiritual chakras. The gift of this chakra is accepting your originality, expressing your authentic voice, and speaking your truth. When we say speaking truth, it is not only not telling lies, it is also expressing and living out your truth. So to go back to the Dharma, that seed that is planted within you, are you living your truth? Are you being your best self? So the fifth chakra is all about living our truth and expressing our truth, and of course, speaking truth. So all about authenticity in the broadest sense of the word. The energy of this chakra allows you to seek knowledge that is true beyond limitations of time and space, beyond cultural and family conditioning. The way of the throat chakra is the way of inspired creativity, seeking and sharing of the truth. It is the way of standing up for what you believe in, saying no when you need to, and being open and honest in what you say and who you are. The fifth chakra is linked directly to your personal integrity and sense of honor. As a communication center, it not only allows you to express who you are and what you stand for, but it also allows you to listen deeply to another. If you look at this from the birth path philosophy, people who have the fifth chakra as their birth path, are typically people who are very strong communicators. They love words. They are very good at expressing themselves, both verbally and written. They seek knowledge, and they love to share knowledge. They often drawn to professions where communication is essential, so journalism, writers, also teachers, very typical, drawn to teaching others, spreading the word for the purpose of teaching, higher learnings. So very strong communicators. The name means especially pure, a pure wisdom. It's located in the area of the throat, the neck, and the shoulders. The element is ether, and the color is blue. And the Bija mantra here is hum. Again, just like the other mantras we've gone through, making sure that when you chant it, getting all the free sounds. Hum. Making sure that you sort of drag that mantra out to get the vibration. The right is to speak. It is connected to the thyroid and the parathyroid glands. The physical association is throat, ears, mouth, vocal cords, shoulders, and neck. And the psychological function is communication. What you typically see here is what is so interesting about this chakra is because it's about authenticity and expressing our truth, both in who we are, but also in words. Anything, if you are someone who experience and you see from your test results that there is an underactive throat chakra, the fifth chakra is underactive, be very curious if you actually, are you living your truth? I know it's a big question, are you living your truth? But a lot of us can get lost in a direction we thought was meant for us. We start living these lives and we pile on these labels on ourselves, and before we know it, we went down a path and we're very good at it, but it's actually not our truth. So if you're someone who also keep getting pain and aches in your shoulders and your neck area, always feeling a bit tense and stiff, a lot of ear issues, throat issues, all of these, be curious. Does it have anything to do with me living in my truth? Am I living authentically? Am I expressing myself authentically? So again, it is so, at least to me, so incredibly fascinating how these things are connected, and by understanding how they're connected, how we gain so much more insight in who we are and how we can be the best version of ourselves. The identity here is your creative identity. So don't mistake this with the creative energy of your second chakra. Here it's more about creating yourself. And it's again about expressing and living your truth. So it's more about the creation of you. Who are you and what is your authentic expression? So it's more like that understanding of creativity. The development again is much later, so it happens in the age of 7 to 12 years. Much more crucial age in many ways, because it's also just borderlining towards our teenage years. So it can be very challenging, and very easily what you see is that actually the throat chakra for a lot of people is very challenged. A lot of people have not been told that it's okay to express their truth. And in many ways, it can be from things of like people expecting you to choose a certain career, to take a certain direction, choose a certain partner, live in a certain place, be a certain version of yourself. And we pile on these labels on ourselves. And before we know it, we can't actually see beyond those labels anymore. We've completely forgotten who we are. And we maybe never even connected in with it. So if we're living in a culture which is maybe even suppressing our authenticity. So you have, I hope most of you live in more in open societies where you have the right to also be yourself. But there are many places in this world where especially women do not have the right to necessarily express their truth. And they are pushed into certain roles, and not only women, also men, due to cultural or religious expectations. So again, if you, during the time when it's developed, are fundamentally challenged in developing an open and strong throat chakra, you might be dealing with this for the rest of your lives. And it's so important to do the work. Biggest challenge is lies. And here it's not about just telling lies. It's again that if you are not living your truth, you are actually lying to yourself, to put it very black and white. And that is what I explained before. If you have aches and pains and you just don't feel right, maybe it's a sign of you not living your truth, because you're actually lying to yourself. So the lies are bringing the imbalance in your chakra. but it can also be telling lies or other people lying to you. Like what I've seen with people who are 5, they're very, very sensitive to lies, and it's very, very important for them to also, the truth is very important. And if you lie to them, they take it very, very personal. It's like it can be very unforgivable. So lies are a huge influence. Again, we're not diving into the planets and the deities. It's just for future reference. The sense organs is ears, and the predominant sense is hearing. So again, because it's also about communication and not only about expressing, but also the ability to hear. So our sense organ is through hearing. So if you were trying to balance your chakra, listening to certain sounds, there can be healing sounds, music can be very therapeutic. So what happens when the fifth chakra is either underactive or overactive? When it's underactive and you are actually not fully expressing, you've sort of limited your way of expressing. You're maybe not speaking up. So it's actually very logical. Shyness, lack of connection with vocation or purpose of life. Again, you're not really connected to the true purpose. You're not connected to the authenticity. So it's been suppressed. Submissive in conversations, because ultimately you don't really know if you have anything to say. Lack of self-expression, or the opposite. If someone is overactive, they literally are incapable of listening to others. They talk just for the purpose of talking. They have an excessive need to speak, a lack of control, and speak before thinking. So 5 people are generally can be very intelligent people and knowledgeable people. And when they are open and balanced in the chakra, they are very, very wise people, and they have a lot to teach this world, and they love teaching also. They love passing on knowledge. But you can imagine what happens if someone is a 5, and see 5 people often have the ability to convince people about anything. They have such a power over words that they can take that power and use it for spreading words, and hopefully if they come from a good place, they're just spreading good words. They're just talking truth. They're spreading authenticity. But if they're overactive and if they have bad intentions, these can be very manipulative and very power hungry and can convince people to anything, very manipulative. So 5 can be very strong, but when not open and balanced, it could be a little bit of a dangerous personality trait. So I used to actually joke that I thought that someone like Hitler, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, I know that it's still a sensitive topic, talking about the Second World War, but I used to say that, I am sure someone like Hitler would be a 5. And he actually is. I looked up his birth numbers, and it actually turns out that he's a 5. When you think about someone like that, and I'm sure his throat chakra must have been very overactive, as he could convince an entire world about what the supreme race was. And if you take a look at what he looked like himself, and still he had everyone convinced that the perfect human race was tall and blonde and blue-eyed, you look at him and he looked nothing like that. And still the whole world followed him. So it's just an example. And again, I'm hoping I don't offend anyone by this, but I think it's such a powerful metaphor to show that how much power can be in the words when the intention is not behind, the good intention is not behind those words. So it's the same salespeople. There's a lot of people that are 5 that choose sales because they have such a power, such a quality and skill to convince people. They can use that to sell basically anything. So yeah, there are always good sides and bad sides of these, but when they are open and balanced, it's all good. Now we will move on to the Third Eye Chakra, the Sixth Chakra, Anya. The Third Eye Chakra transcends time. The gift of this chakra is seeing both inner and outer worlds. An open Sixth Chakra can enable clairvoyance, telepathy, lucid dreaming, expanded imagination, and visualization. The energy of this chakra allows us to experience clear thought as well as gifts of spiritual contemplation and self-reflection. The energy of the third eye allows us to access our inner guidance that comes from the depth of our being. It allows us to cut through illusion and to access deeper truth, to see beyond the mind, beyond the words. The way of the third eye is seeing everything as it is from the point of witness or observer, or from simply being mindful moment by moment. It means examining self-limiting ideas and developing wisdom that comes from a perspective that transcends the duality of good or bad, black or white. It means seeing and helping others to see the deeper meaning of the situation in their life. The third eye is not only the seat of wisdom, but also a seat of conscience. This is where you not only see what is going on, but you also know what it means. This is where your sense of justice and your ethics originate. The Sanskrit name means to perceive or to command. The third eye chakra is located where the name says, in the area of your third eye. So it's in between your eyebrows, above the base of your nose, and it then goes to the center of your brain. And actually it is said that the third eye goes outside of your forehead. So you would go like from the center of your brain through the third eye and then in front of your face. And how far beyond your face it goes is unclear, but it is connected to the outside of the physical body. It has connection to all elements combined and anything related to light. The color is indigo, and the bija mantra here is Om. And again, as I said, the three sounds of Om, Om, Aum. The right is to see. Not just see with your eyes, because this is to see the truth, to separate facts from illusion. It is very much connected to our intuition. An open, well-balanced third eye means that you are very intuitive. It is connected to the endocrine gland, the pituitary gland. I will also leave a little video as the pituitary gland, which you also touched on with Zoe in the endocrine lecture, is such an incredibly fascinating little gland, and it just proves that there is so much more to our physiology than just bones and matter and cells. There is something very spiritual there. So I will leave a little video on the Facebook group and also some other links to some other videos to dive a little bit deeper into this more subtle spiritual world. So yeah, it's connected to the pituitary gland in the center of our brain, which is also called our gland of the pituitary, and the pineal gland are very spiritual glands. Physical association has to do with eyes, base of the skull, brow, head, and lower part of the brain. The psychological function is intuition and imagination. The identity is our archetypical identity. So as if we are more than this. It is more than just our physical self. We are connected to the universe. We are more than just this. Development states, it develops during our adolescence. So you can also imagine this is not the easiest time to shape something. A lot of things are going on with us in our adolescence. Challenges illusion. Because the third eye has the ability to see beyond this world, it can also be knowing the difference between what is truth and what is illusion. Again, the planets and the deities, we're not going to dive deeper into these. The sense organ is the mind, so the whole mind. And the predominant sense is neutral. It's what we call the sixth sense. So it's beyond our five senses. So the third eye, when that is developed and it's open, we have a sixth sense, which is basically our intuition. And as I'm sure a lot of you will agree, a lot of us have not really been taught to listen to our intuition. We are often told to follow expectations, again, it's the labels again. But the third eye is essentially all about intuition, listening to that inner voice. So you can see also when you go back to the fifth chakra, if you are connected to your truth, to your authenticity, and you trust your intuition and your instinct, you will go the right way. You will not do wrong. You will be on the right path. But we have to teach ourselves, because the majority of people haven't been conditioned that way, especially in the Western world. It's not how we are brought up. It's not how the school system are shaping people. You see it much more here in Asia and in the Eastern philosophies, that there's a lot more focus on authenticity, on intuition. That is something that we have often from the Western world. We have a little bit more work to do there to develop these abilities. What happens when the third eye is out of balance? So it's either underactive or overactive. What you see with people who are, for example, if they have the sixth chakra, the third eye is their birth path, they are often very spiritual. They are naturally very spiritually inclined. Remember this, if you're now sitting and thinking, well, I'm a six and I'm not spiritual at all. Well, you are in a yoga teacher training, so part of you has definitely been felt called. But remember, it's whether we tap into those abilities, and society shapes us a lot. So maybe we haven't had the opportunity to tap into it. But it is said that people with the six as their birth path, and also when you look at a lot of spiritual gurus and leaders, a lot of them are higher numbers, 6, 7, 8, 9, also 5, or they have a combination of those numbers. So they might have a birth path of 6, and then there are 9s and there are secondary chakras. So you definitely see that there are some. When I first discovered this life path number, I went nuts. I was calculating everyone's number, and it resonated so much with me, and I saw so much where it just made sense. So yeah, back to the under and overactive of the third eye. So someone who has an underactive third eye, they can feel stuck in the daily grind, lack of clarity, rejecting everything spiritual, no sense of vision for themselves. And what can happen when it's overactive is that they cannot separate fantasy and reality. They feel ungrounded, can't calm down, high levels of mental activity, and lives a little bit in a fantasy world. There's also been studies that have suggested that people with ADHD, actually it's not we have just labeled ADHD as a problem, but it might actually be that they are just spiritually higher, and we don't understand how to, the world is not made for them. So there's some interesting studies looking into that people with also other mental challenges, that maybe it's a different level of intelligence, a different level of spirituality. From here we'll move on to the Crown Chakra. So this is the seventh chakra. It should be said that when we are moving towards these higher chakras, it becomes a lot more spiritual, and it's a little bit harder to explain these chakras, as they are less connected to our physical body, much more connected to higher states of consciousness, and it's not as clear as, for example, when we have with the root chakra, and it's connected to our limbs and we can feel it in the body, and it's our connection to our physical body. So this is a lot more subtle. So it can be a little bit harder to also grasp these chakras. So if you have a little bit problem, like, can't really relate to these higher ones, just do the best you can for now, and we see how far we get. So the seventh chakra is our source of enlightenment and spiritual connection to all that is. It's a connection to our higher selves, to every being on the planet, and ultimately the divine energy that creates everything in the universe. The gift of this chakra is experiencing unity and the selfless realization that everything is connected at a fundamental level. The energy of this chakra allows us to experience mystical oneness with everyone and everything in nature. You have a sense of knowing that there is a deeper meaning of life and that there is an order that underlies all of existence. The way of the Crown Chakra is the way of going beyond the limits of your own ego. It is the way of transcending the ego and knowing that all of creation is interconnected at a fundamental level. It is the meeting point between the body and the ego, and the infinite, the universe and the soul. So, the Sanskrit name is 1,000 petals. So also when you look at the lotus flower in the background, it has, I don't know if there's actually 1,000 petals, but there are many petals on the lotus flower. The location is at the crown of the head, and it's actually said to be at the crown of the head and then above the head. So again, just like with the third eye, it connects us to the universe around us. It doesn't have an element or thought connected to it. The color is white or violet. The petals, as I mentioned, is 1,000, and the seed sound is Om or just silence. The right is to know and to learn. So this is a lot about wisdom and higher knowledge. It's connected to the endocrine gland, the pineal gland. And as I mentioned before, the pituitary and the pineal gland is our enlightenment center of our being. And I will leave a couple of videos for you to dive into on the Facebook group. The physical association is our central nervous system and the cerebral cortex. The psychological function is awareness and understanding. And the identity is a universal identity. It develops throughout our whole lives. The challenge is attachment, because in this world we live, especially in Western, we're very attached to physical, to tangible. And this chakra is all about the intangible, the spiritual. So the challenge is attachment to the physical, but also becoming too attached to the spiritual. We're not diving into the planets and the deities, the imbalances. So here what happens, see, what I often see with people with the life path, or the birth paths 7, 8, and 9. So these higher ones, they easily buy into these kind of things, as if I don't even have to explain it. They have a higher understanding and they more easily grasp that there is something more. So they don't need as much explanation. They're often spiritual seekers. They don't need the facts. They just take the experience. Like a spiritual seeker, like when you experience something, that is proof enough. Whereas the lower chakras would need a little bit more validation. Like I need the proof, if you're looking at it that way. So when you look at what happens when it's out of balance, and you see this a lot with people who have strong, either a lot of these numbers in their life path or in their birth path, so they have 7, 8, and 9, they have the tendency to detach a little bit from the world because they're seeking the more spiritual world. So if it's overactive, they don't feel a connection to the world that's actually created. because the world that most of us live in, it wasn't really created, especially in the Western world. It's not really created for spiritual seekers. We live in a very scientific world, if you like to put it that way. And for people who are more spiritually inclined, you have to make your own path, find your own truth, create your own life. So it's a little bit harder work, actually, and often people can feel disconnected, lost, not being able to get out of their head, trying to seek truth but can't really find it, because again the systems are not really set in place for them, so they have to make their own way. So if it's underactive, then typically they're disconnected to the spirit. They're constantly cynical regarding anything sacred or spiritual. Whereas when it's overactive, they're living in their head and they're disconnected from the body. They often, their root chakra is completely underactive, and when you look at their chakra test results, they would very often be skewed towards the higher chakras, and there would be an underactivity in 3 and below, so everything below the heart. That can be a very, very typical pattern. And also, if it's overactive, they can become a little bit closed-minded, as if they become too attached to the spiritual and will not accept anything but spiritual. And they start living a little bit in their own world. But of course, when it is open and balanced, they are able to understand things, to see things that are harder for other people to grasp. So it's very important, especially when you're on the yogic path, that that is also what the yogic path is about. It's about opening our third eye, creating the connection between our third eye and our crown chakra and the higher chakra, so that we can learn and see and receive higher truth and higher knowledge. As previously mentioned, we have chosen to approach the chakra philosophy from a 9 chakra system instead of the traditional 7 chakra system. It's very important to understand here that the 7th chakra system is the traditional system, and that is where we have a lot more knowledge. It's thousands of years old. The 12th chakra system, however, is a much newer, more modern philosophy, and is primarily expressed by contemporary healers and energy workers, and it is still a work in progress. So we don't have the same kind of structured information and detail and characteristics of the higher chakras. So I will not go into a whole lot of detail in these. I would basically just, in a more general words, explain a bit what these higher chakras are about, especially if your birth path and life path numbers include 8 and 9. So basically everything we just went through in the 7 are also represented in 8 and 9. So these are the higher spiritual chakras. So the 8 is basically being on the receiving end of the universe. So it is said that everything that ever took place in this universe, the information is still here because it's energy. Every thought that was ever thought, every word that was ever spoken, any event that ever took place, the energetic residue is still here. The 8th chakra is said to be receiving, or being the gateway to receive and tap into that information, so that you have access to all knowledge. And the more we cultivate the 8th chakra, the more it will open and the more we will know. It is basically as if we would open a door to this universal library of all knowledge of all time. So to just share a little bit of my own experience in this, I noticed at a certain point when I had been teaching for a while and practicing yoga for a long time also, that I sometimes would hear myself say something in class or to a student, and as I said it, it just came out. I just said it. I didn't think about it. The words just were coming from me. The knowledge came from me. And then afterwards, when I had then finished, I would stop and have this feeling like, how did I know that? Where did that come from? And in the beginning, when this happened, I would go home and I would Google part of what I had just said to check, is it true what I just said? Because it was so foreign to me and I didn't understand where I knew it from. So for me, that was my first experiences with suddenly having access to knowledge. And it can sound to some of you, I'm sure some of you must be sitting there thinking now, okay, now she's truly lost it. But I'm sure there's also some of you that have had similar experiences. As if we just know, and the knowledge we haven't been taught, the knowledge just came to us. And it's an amazing experience, and I hope if you haven't experienced it, that this will happen to you. And I'm convinced that if you stay on a yogic path and you do the work, eventually this will happen. And of course, some of us are more sensitive. I'm personally a very sensitive person, which is, I used to see it really as a curse, and have learned through yoga to really see it as a strength, because it means that often people also with 7, 8, and 9 are very sensitive and very, they see, understand, hear, feel things that other people are maybe not aware of, as if there's this extra layer. So yeah, it can sound a little bit, it's hard for me to explain these higher chakras actually, because they have to be experienced. But I hope you can understand a little bit about that the 8th chakra is about the receiving of information, being open to the knowledge that has not been taught, going beyond that known structure. I hope it makes a little bit sense, because as I said, it is harder to explain these higher ones, as they really have to be experience for yourself. But I'm hoping the ones amongst you that have either 8 or 9s, you're already on that path. I'm sure you already have these skills inside of you, and it's just a matter of cultivating them further and trusting your intuition and trusting yourself. And when something like this happens, don't necessarily have to do what I did and go home and Google to see, like, was it true what I just said? But just be curious, what else? And the more your mind will open. So really keeping an open mind. The 9th chakras is a lot like also the 8th. But the thing with the 9th chakra is it's more on the giving end. So you have now opened the 8th, so you have been receiving this information. 9 is more than about giving back. So you are now taking that information and you are passing it on. So what you see with 9, a lot of the gurus like Dalai Lamas and the gurus of the world, they have 9 in either their birth path or their life path. And I definitely noticed for myself when 9 became my secondary chakra, something changed in my life, and that's what I was talking about earlier when we turned 28. Definitely for me it was true. Like, so much happened, so many things shifted, and later on only in my early 30s did I learn about this chakra system, and I've been addicted ever since. But it was when I learned about this that I understood, everything that was going on with me around that age, 27 to 28, can be explained by also moving into a different energy in my life. So unfortunately, the downside of 8 and 9, especially people that have that energy is very strong in their lives, they can often feel very disconnected to this world. As I said, this life, many of the societies we live in, the world we have created, it's not necessarily made for spiritual people, especially in the Western world. Our school system doesn't look like that. The typical jobs do not look like that. So you have to find your own path, and that can be hard, finding your way to your truth. And what you see a lot with people with the flip side of these strong energy being present in your life is that a lot of people can become depressed and feel detached because they feel lost. So it's so important, and I always encourage people with these higher numbers, definitely find a coach, find someone that can help you, guide you through this. And I can promise you that when you then start diving deeper into it, it will start to make more sense, and things will start to become clear. And it's an incredibly rewarding path to be on. So that's all about the eights and nines and about the chakra system. To round it off, we're just going to look at a couple of extreme examples. So as mentioned earlier, we want the chakra system to be open, and preferably we want to be on a high frequency. So as I said, some people are on a lower frequency. It doesn't make you a bad person, it's just where you are, but you can raise that frequency. So if all your percentages are really in the low, let's say it says open but everything says like 40%, know that you can go to 100, and you can even go beyond 100. So we want to keep all the chakras open, and we want to increase our frequency. What you see a lot is that there can be in the chakra test results, and even though the chakra test results don't include the eights and nines, what you can do in your chakra test result, you can take the sevens, the crown chakra, and let that be representative for your sevens, eights, and nines, because the energy is so similar, just to give you an idea. So what we see a lot is that the chakra test can be skewed towards the higher chakras. This happens a lot for people that are very spiritually inclined, have high birth path numbers, but it can also happen for other reasons. You see it also what I mentioned earlier with people with ADHD, people that are very vata can also be skewed towards the higher chakras. Very often vata and high birth path numbers and higher scores on the higher chakras, they go together. We don't necessarily want that. It's not that I want you to then lower the higher ones, but we need to then bring the lower ones into balance so that you don't have this skewed picture of a disconnect. So what happens when the higher chakras are overstimulated? You get disconnected to the lower chakras. There is a lot of this in New Age way of thinking. You ignore and deny everything that has to do with your more primal existence. You can become a little bit too addicted to something that has to do with spirituality. You get a bit lost in it. So yeah, these are just, you can read through these yourselves also to just get an idea of what happens when it is the results are skewed towards the higher end. The opposite is when they're skewed towards the lower end. So when there's overstimulation of the lower chakras, again, no connection to the heart. Remember earlier, as I said, you see that in the previous one as well. When the heart is not connected, it was skewed to the higher chakras, there's no heart connection. So here it's skewed to the lower chakras, and you can see also here some of it can be disconnected to the higher chakras, competitiveness, overconsumption, unlocking, lack of willingness, anger, violent behavior. So basically what we are aiming to do, we are aiming to have a balance and open and not skewed towards one side or the other. That was all for the chakra philosophy. There's so much more than what I have been able to share with you here.